at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his.
Oh.
And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Tuesday, October 8th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. And there is so much going on with impeachment. It is just breaking news all around us. And we're going to break it all down. But first, I think Stephen Colbert last night made a great, excellent point, destroying Donald Trump's talking point. It's a quick one, then we'll get to the seriousness. Here's clip number 2.
When questions veered toward his impeachment, he seemed shocked that he was being impeached at all.
You can't impeach a president for doing a great job. You can't impeach a president for having the lowest and best unemployment numbers that we've had in 51 years. You can't impeach a president for tax cuts and regulation cuts.
That's true, but you can impeach a president for asking a foreign leader to interfere in our election and then being dumb enough to release the transcript and brag about it on television.
Drop the mic, walk away, boom. Exactly. That's why Donald Trump is going to be impeached. There's no doubt in my mind he will be impeached. Everywhere you look, there's impeachment. In fact, I got a little song we put together about how much impeachment there is. Here's clip number 3, Matt.
It's beginning to look a lot like
impeachment.
Everywhere you go.
That's Johnny Mathis kind of lost the tune there in the middle. Okay, that was me sticking my voice in. But impeachment's everywhere. And we have breaking news. Donald Trump just gave a new article of impeachment, although I thought he gave it earlier today, and I was prepared to talk about that. So this just emphasized that very point. A letter came out from White House counsel Pat Cipollone just a short time ago, making it very clear that Donald Trump will not cooperate with a co-equal branch of government, even though that co-equal branch, Congress, is operating under the mandate of the United States Constitution. But Donald Trump, who literally argued in federal court, as we went through the court decision yesterday, that he's above the law, and I'm not kidding, his lawyers argued he's above the law the entire time he's in office, including not even being able to be criminally investigated, but a federal judge shut that down yesterday as repugnant to our Constitution because he was trying to elevate himself to be a king. Trump doesn't care because Trump, this is why. Here's the blunt reality, and here's the worst part. Trump might be right at the end of this. Trump believes he controls the referees. And the ultimate referee is the Supreme Court. And he knows, as well as we do, is control 5-4 with 2 Trump picks. So everything Trump is doing is saying no, hoping, or at least at the very least delaying, but hoping it gets to the Supreme Court and they rule in his favor because he stacked the court. That he possibly could be right. I cannot tell you with 100% certainty that is not correct. But what we can talk about here is what's going on in the context of this impeachment with Donald Trump's lawyers. I had the letter right here in my hands sent to Speaker Pelosi and Messer's chairman. I write on behalf of Donald J. Trump in response to your numerous legally unsupported demands made as part of what you've labeled, contrary to the Constitution, as an impeachment inquiry. And it goes on, blah, blah, blah. It's 8 pages, which is too long to be blunt, just from a PR point of view and trying to get the media to focus on the framing that they're trying to do. This fails. 8 pages is too long. 1 page, yes, with an appendix, good point. This is too much. But I went through it, and I want to share a little bit, and then we'll go back to the real world and what's going on here so you understand. Their argument, the first point, is a quasi-legal argument. It's essentially saying that your inquiry to inquire into Donald Trump is constitutionally invalid. It's saying it violates due process rights and the separation of powers. And it's going on the thing we've heard Republicans say over and over, that the House of Representatives have never attempted to launch an impeachment inquiry without a majority of the House taking a vote. And they go on to talk about Donald Trump he's being deprived of due process. Without that, he can't call witnesses. His lawyers can't cross-examine witnesses. First of all, that's just ridiculous. There's nothing in the Constitution that requires a full vote. There's nothing in the House rules that require a full vote. So stop, period, boom, done, walk away. This is a made-up defense. Because if the Democrats give in on this, Trump can then come up with a new letter imposing new unilateral conditions that the Democrats have to overcome in order for Trump to comply with. Does anybody think Trump will comply with anything? As a reminder, the guy was already pre-impeachment saying no to every subpoena that was being served for his tax records. Yesterday, we talked in detail about a lawsuit he filed to stop the Manhattan DA from getting his tax records from his accounting firm. That had nothing to do with impeachment. That's the Manhattan DA. But Donald Trump was even stopping that. Donald Trump will not comply or cooperate with anybody's investigations. Donald Trump thinks he is King Trump. He thinks he's above the law, and he's using his lawyers to argue that. So we want due process. There's nothing in the Constitution in impeachment, which I read over the weekend in greater detail, not just the Constitution, but the rules involving the trial that we're going to see in the Senate. I was watching some of the Clinton trial, which we'll play clips when we have time, when things aren't breaking all the time, from 1999. But there's nothing that says in the House version of impeachment, which is simply, in effect, acting like a grand jury. And let's keep this analogy intact here for a second. In a grand jury, the defendant can testify, generally does not, but it's the state presenting their case to grand jurors. And the grand jurors decide to indict someone or not. If you're indicted, then you have a full trial. Then you have all the buffet of due process afforded to you. The Sixth Amendment, right to cross-examine. You can call witnesses. You can object, right? That's the analogy. That's what impeachment is. It's like a grand jury, the exact same thing. If a president is charged or indicted / impeached, they all mean the same thing. In the Senate, Donald Trump will have the full range of constitutional protection. He will have his own lawyers. He will have witnesses he can call, and they can cross-examine. That's not what impeachment is. So what they're doing is trying to appeal to Americans' sense of watching TV law shows forever going, oh yeah, you should get a right to cross-examine. That's in a criminal setting. Let's be very clear. Impeachment is a constitutionally mandated and defined approach. It's not whimsical. It's not arbitrary. It's not television law and order. It's completely by the Constitution. It is simply a hearing to determine if there should be impeachment or not. And the founding fathers, and there's a great new book called Impeachment I've been reading co-written by a bunch of people who have written a lot on impeachment over the years. And the first chapter is all about the debate over impeachment by the founding fathers. And it was very clear they were very, very, very concerned about an executive like Trump who could stay in there and be corrupt and do everything he can to stay in power. And they debated, should we even have impeachment? Some debated, said, no impeachment. Let the voters decide every time they're up for re-election. But they decided, no, we need this procedure. So it's in the Constitution for that reason. And high crimes and misdemeanors was their sort of consensus building. And they were fine with those words. So this idea that due process is being violated by Donald Trump because they actually argue in their actual letter here, to comply with the Constitution, it says as a minimum, the president should have the right to see all the evidence, to present evidence, to call witnesses, to have counsel present at all hearings, cross-examine witnesses, make objections to examinations. No, that's a trial. That's not the impeachment. So they're trying to play on people's lack of understanding. If you don't get it, not our listeners, but the mainstream people who don't follow this go, well, it's only fair. He should be able to cross-examine, call any witness he wants. No, the Republicans will get to cross-examine everyone. Every Republican on that committee will get to cross-examine. It's not like, and we know Trump is coordinating with them. So in effect, they are getting this right. But it goes on and on, the letter, again, it's 8 pages. Here's the real argument, folks. Here's the argument that'll be on Fox News. It's been on Fox News. It'll continue to be on Fox News. The invalid impeachment inquiry, I'm reading right from it, plainly seeks to reverse the election of 2016 and to influence the election of 2020. And he writes here, the effort to impeach President Trump is a naked political strategy that began the day he was inaugurated, and perhaps even before. And they go on and on to say all Democrats want to do is transform impeachment from an extraordinary remedy to one that can be used every day. And then a stupid argument at the end, there's no legitimate basis for impeachment inquiry, which is really sort of outrageous. It's based on the Constitution, doesn't even deserve any kind of discussion whatsoever. I won't waste your time with that one. Finally, it sums up here that you have left the president with no choice. Literally, that's their words. Because, he says, they're not going to cooperate. And they blame the Democrats, saying that because participating in this inquiry under the current unconstitutional posture would inflict lasting institution on the executive branch, you have left the president with no choice. So he's not going to cooperate because he wants to preserve the separation of powers. And whoever wrote that deserves an award for writing just pure bullshit. And here's the last paragraph. You got to hear it. For the foregoing reasons, the president cannot allow your constitutionally illegitimate proceedings to distract him and those in the executive branch from their work on behalf of the American people. The president has a country to lead. The American people elected him to do this job, and he remains focused on fulfilling his promises to the American people. And it concludes, we hope that in the light of these many deficiencies we have identified in your proceedings, you will abandon the current invalid efforts to pursue an impeachment inquiry and join the president in focusing on the many important goals that matter to the American people. Hardy hard. Should have ended LOL. I mean, this is just a piece of garbage, folks. Look, they're doing what they're doing. And if I was representing Donald Trump, perhaps this is the only defense you've got. Because their own client, Pat Cipolloni's client, Donald Trump has convicted himself in the own phone, we'll call it a transcript, that he released to us. So the key facts are not at issue. The key facts are undisputed. Donald Trump calls the president of the Ukraine on the very day he gets a poll showing he's down 10 points from Fox News to Joe Biden. A month before he got that same numbers, he freaked out on Twitter, calls up Zelensky and says, we help you more than anybody. It's not reciprocal, using the word reciprocity, and going, you know what? There is something you can do for us. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, investigate. I'll have the Rudy Giuliani, and not just my lawyer, but the Attorney General of the United States. I will use the apparatus of government for my own personal ability to try to get reelected at a taxpayer cost. That's what he does. That's all admitted. That's all in his transcript. There's not even a debate about that. Whistleblower 1 or 2, I don't know. There might be a third whistleblower. Maybe Melania Trump is the whistleblower 2. I don't know. But I'm telling you, this is... And to make matters worse for Donald Trump, a new poll came out this morning that was stunning. ABC Washington Post poll. The last time they asked the question to the American people, about a month and a half ago, do you support an impeachment inquiry? Not removal, just an impeachment inquiry. Only 37% said yes. 41% said no. Today, this morning's poll, it used to be 37%. Do you know what it is now? 58% of Americans support an impeachment inquiry. It has jumped by over 20 points in 6 weeks. Now only 38% of Americans oppose it. Then the bigger question. Oh, I should add this. By the way, of this new poll, 20% of almost 20% of Republicans support an impeachment inquiry. As that number climbs just a little bit more, Trump is in grave danger inside his own party. But we'll see if that happens. Then the other question is, do you support removing Donald Trump as president? The answer, 49%. 49% of Americans, as we sit here, believe Donald Trump should be removed. More importantly, though, when you look at it, take a step back from that, that'll take a whole trial. Nearly 60% of our fellow Americans think Donald Trump's, this impeachment inquiry into Trump is valid. It is fine. It's not political. It's needed. Donald Trump's stonewalling is only going to make these numbers rise because innocent people do not stonewall. I think that's a given. That's common sense to everyone. Doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. We all know that. So, and also concerning for Donald Trump is his beloved Rasmussen poll, which if you're on Twitter, you see Trump citing one poll all the time. It's Rasmussen because it oversamples Republicans. Literally the day before the impeachment inquiry began, Donald Trump had a 52% approval rating, 52%. Where is he today? 45%. He's dropped 7 points since this began. It's not going to change. In fact, I think, and I'm not sure how much worse it gets because a lot of things are in a hyper-partisan nation where a lot of things are baked in. And also, even independents who might think Trump has done something really wrong might prefer having the election decided and defeating him there as opposed to removing a sitting president, because we've never done that in the history of our republic. And it is jarring and it is concerning that you're going to nullify an election. With that said, if the founding fathers were here, Donald Trump is the man they would say impeachment is deserved and removal is warranted. I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever saying that. I believe that. I'm in the 49% that thinks Donald Trump should be gone. And for those who faulted Mueller, I have to be honest. If it was not for Mueller, we would not be here now at this point. Because the Mueller inquiry of 2 years made Americans hear in a drip, drip, drip way, ironically enough, sort of like Hillary's emails, where people might not have followed the details, but knew someone was investigating Trump and something was wrong. And it made a lot of Americans see Trump in a different light. And it made it see that the guy clearly, while maybe had not committed crimes per Mueller, was welcoming help from Russia, was using the help of Russia, and was, in 10 different episodes identified by Robert Mueller, potentially obstructing justice. That affected Americans' point of view. And that's why we are where we are today. At this point, with Richard Nixon, at the beginning of the formal impeachment inquiry, and that was in May of 1974, the formal impeachment inquiry. Before that were hearings in the Senate with Sam Ervin. The formal impeachment inquiry, May of 1974, less than 40% of Americans support the removal of Richard Nixon. We are higher than that today. We are 49%, according to this one poll. And we'll see, there's going to be other polls coming out. They're going to move back and forth little by little. There's margins of errors. You can't be sure 100%. But you see the trend is an uptick upwards. And now you've got today, and I was really just going to talk about this today because I didn't know that Trump was formally going to send a letter saying we're not cooperating. This is an exhibit that's going to be in a trial, in a hearing at some point. Today, Gordon Sondland was supposed to testify. The U.S. ambassador, who I remind you, when you hear his name, think Trump stooge. He's a Trump stooge. He's a man, not a career diplomat. He's a rich guy who gave literally $1 million to Donald Trump's inaugural campaign committee. And in return, he got to be ambassador to the EU. He bought that. So, and he's now gotten closer with Trump, apparently. The reporting is Trump has sent him on discreet missions to different places. So he was supposed to testify today, voluntarily, not under subpoena. But early this morning, 12:30 Eastern time this morning, he gets a phone call from the State Department, certainly on the direction of Donald Trump. Don't testify, don't cooperate. And I would play the Adam Schiff clips. Let me play one because I want to have time for phone calls because the breaking news took up a lot of the time here. And obviously it's all intertwined here. But today, Adam Schiff made a great point about blocking Ambassador Sondland's testimony is another instance of obstruction of justice. Here's clip number 6 we'll jump down to, please, Matt.
The failure to produce this witness, the failure to produce these documents, we consider yet additional strong evidence of obstruction of the constitutional functions of Congress, a co-equal branch of government. There are 4 issues that we are looking at least 4 issues that we are looking at, all that go to the heart of our national security. And by preventing us from hearing from this witness and obtaining these documents, the President and Secretary of State are taking actions that prevent us from getting the facts needed to protect the nation's security. We are looking into whether the President solicited foreign help in a U.S. presidential election again.
And he goes on with other things we've talked about on this show, the idea of trying to quid pro quo. And to remind people, Ambassador Sondland is the guy who exchanged text messages with a career diplomat, Bill Taylor. And Bill Taylor said to Sondland, are we now, and this is September 1st, just last month, quote, are we now saying that security assistance in White House meetings are conditioned on investigations, being the Biden investigation? And Sondland goes, call me, because I don't want to put it in writing. They apparently have a phone call. So a week later, Bill Taylor says, as I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. So you've got him point blank putting in writing. And there's a reason Bill Taylor's putting that in writing because he raised it on the phone call. And clearly that was not enough. Sondland waits almost 5 hours later and then responds in a text, which sounds like something a lawyer would write because I was a lawyer and this is something I would write for a client to make it self-serving so you can cite it later. Sondland writes back to Bill, Bill, I believe you are incorrect about President Trump's intentions. By the way, no other tweet Sondland wrote has this formality. So this is clearly written by somebody else. It's not in the same tone or context or structure of his other texts. So it goes on. The president has been crystal clear. No quid pro quos of any kind. The president is trying to evaluate whether Ukraine is truly going to adopt the transparency and reforms that President Zelensky promised during his campaign. I suggest we stop the back and forth by text. If you still have concerns, I recommend you give Lisa, whoever, and some other people a call. Have you ever written a text that long in your entire life, folks? I mean, I'm reading the text. Have you? No. What happened is the lawyers for Trump, and we're going to find this out when Sondland is forced to testify, sent it to him, and he pasted and copied this. That's my supposition, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on this one. Because all the other texts are, call me. Hey, that sounds great. Typical text stuff. Not, Bill, I believe you are incorrect. The president's been crystal clear. No quid pro quo. Come on, this is self-serving garbage. In fact, today, Donald Trump cited the words of that tweet in defending the idea of telling Sondland not to testify. So, look, we're watching a cover-up in real time. I don't know what it was like to watch the Richard Nixon cover-up, but we are watching this in a condensed time period. We saw Donald Trump give us all the facts of a crime and now trying to cover up with it. And the bottom line here is Donald Trump's thinking has got to be, and his lawyer's thinking has to be, if you let Sondland testify under oath, he might give up all the jewels. He might say, hey, you know what? Trump told me to do this. And this text message was written for me by White House counsel. And all of a sudden, the case gets so much stronger. The idea of getting 20 Republicans in the Senate to come over is not as far-fetched. And the idea that enough evidence is gathered to criminally charge Donald Trump is certainly within the realm of possibility. I think it's there now, frankly. But by doing this, what they're doing is they would rather get an article of impeachment just for the obstruction. That's what they're counting on, just that. And let America not know the truth, at least not an unvarnished truth, but a disputed one, where everyone lines up in their political sides left and right. Because to remind everybody, Richard Nixon, one of the articles adopted by the Judiciary Committee, was because Richard Nixon refused to produce papers and other things pursuant to a subpoena, and Bill Clinton. There were two articles of impeachment. One of them was for Bill Clinton for his obstruction and impeding the administration of justice. And it says, in all of this, William Jefferson Clinton has undermined the integrity of his office, has brought disrepute on the presidency, has betrayed his trust as president, and has acted in a manner subversive of the rule of law and justice, to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, William Jefferson Clinton, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States of America. That was passed by the full House of Representatives. That was one of the articles of impeachment. There's a lot more to it, but the specific part was because he obstructed and impeded the administration of justice. Donald Trump is doing the same thing. You could draft this, white out William Jefferson Clinton, put in Donald J. Trump. The question is, how long will this take to litigate? And I don't know. I can't give you an answer. Danny Savalas on the third hour. We'll talk about, speculate the idea of what's the quickest way that gets to the court system to compel certain people to testify. Here's the one thing I will tell you, because I was reading the trial rules for the Senate over the weekend for an impeachment trial, and there, as everyone knows, in the Constitution, it says the presiding officer of the impeachment trial of a president is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. He rules immediately. And in that, by the way, in that setting, Donald Trump has all the protections of due process. He can call witnesses, his lawyers can cross-examine, they can object. But there's no delay. You can't play games. If they're not going to allow this ambassador to testify now in the House, then they do it at their peril. Because it goes to the Senate, and then the House managers, who are going to be Democrats, are going to call him. And the whole nation on national TV is going to hear Ambassador Sondland speak and tell his story. And it could be the most damning thing in the world, and Donald Trump could be sunk, and he could be removed. So we're going to find out. So let's take a break. A lot to unpack. What do you think of Donald Trump's strategy? This idea of obstruct, and use that over allow the truth to come out. 866-997-4748. What do you think of how the Democrats are handling this so far? Are you happy with it, unhappy? I know Todd from Indiana is not happy with it. He called last night. He's still on the phone now. Be right back after this break. We'll take your calls.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Voting is the most important civil right of our era because the right to vote preserves all other rights. It's not the Second Amendment. It's not guns. It's voting.